Good afternoon. Welcome to Virtual Reunion Weekend. Thank you for joining us for What's Trending, Hoya Content Creators. A few quick housekeeping reminders before we begin. Please use the Q&A feature in the sidebar to the right of your screen to submit questions to the panelists. We will get to these toward the end as time permits. Full bios for today's speakers are available to view alongside this live stream. Please scroll down below the video to read them. And finally, a recording of this session will be available in the virtual attendee hub later today. I will now turn things over to our host, Julian De La Paz, who can take it from here.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Hi, everyone, and happy virtual reunion weekend. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, though I, of course, wish it were in person, hopefully someday soon. I am very excited to be joined by these fabulous panelists. I'm going to introduce them individually, and then we'll get started. So our first panelist is Candy Washington on Instagram. She is the founder of 1214 Media Productions, where they create inspiring content across TV, film, digital, and publishing platforms. She executive produced and wrote the film Narcissist, hosts a weekly podcast called Sugar Pills, A Practical Guide to Self-Care, and has published 3 books. Up next for Candy is co-hosting a self-care workshop with Bravo TV's Vicky Gunvalson and working on her upcoming 4th book. Welcome, Candy. Next up, we have Mary Orton from the SFS class of 2010 at Mary Orton on Instagram. She is an entrepreneur, investor, and influencer who has been featured in such publications as CNN, Forbes, Women's Wear Daily, and Vogue. After starting her career on Wall Street, she went on to found several successful technology and digital media businesses. In addition to her business endeavors, she continues to share the best in fashion, beauty, and lifestyle content on Instagram. Welcome, Mary. Up next, we have Omika Jakaria from the SFS class of 2015 at Jakaria Sisters on TikTok. Omika Jakaria is a business professional dancer, and content creator. She runs a social media brand with her sisters, also known as the Jakaria Sisters, with a community of nearly 700,000 followers across platforms. They combine their diverse Indian and American identities in their art and content. Welcome, Omika. Last but certainly not least, we have Britt Berlin from the college class of 2016 at the Banana Diaries on Instagram. Brittany Berlin is the founder of the vegan recipe site, The Banana Diaries. Her first cookbook, Baked with Love, was published this past fall with Simon & Schuster and features over 110 vegan and allergy-friendly desserts. Welcome, Britt. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm so excited to be joined by all of you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. And everyone, by the way, be sure to submit your questions so we can get to those at the end. But I want to first start off with a question that I'm going to direct to you, Mary, which is about, really catering to your audience, I think in general, but I'm curious to know whether or not anything changed with COVID. Whether or not your audience wanted different material from you, whether or not you noticed any changes in that regard.
Absolutely. I think we all saw changes across the board, and certainly in the influencer space, there was no difference. And in many cases, it was unique because people were looking, or rightly or wrongly, were relying on information that influencers were providing. And so there was a lot of sort of discussion about, making sure that you're keeping up abreast of CDC guidelines and making sure that your audience is educated and things like that, which is really interesting. And there's sort of ongoing discussion about that and about what influencers should be sharing. But that was a hotly debated topic at the beginning of COVID. And I
didn't even think about that. You're right, though.
Yeah, and a lot of trending like hashtag COVIDiots about people who were perhaps like not, following mask guidelines or still going out, and as information was evolving across the board, influencers as like news media was a weird gray area.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you're right, because each of you have hundreds of thousands of followers on each of your accounts, and they are coming to you for information. Candy, I saw you nodding your head. Did you ever feel the pressure to kind of, promote COVID-friendly content, or making sure that at least the content that you were promoting on your platform was in line with CDC guideline? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, for me, I felt personally responsible just to put out content that was transparent. saying this is what I'm doing for me. However, you need to educate yourself through the correct, government, facilities, the CDC, to get the information for what's right for you and your family. So I think transparency was really key. But I also think on a bigger trend or, shift in consciousness, at least what I saw in general was, pre-COVID, content was king. It was all about guides and tutorials and how-tos and, recipes and all of those things. That was really what was driving, audiences. That's why like Facebook was booming, Instagram was booming. But then I found the shift, during the pandemic and definitely post-pandemic, the shift really went to conversation and community-driven content, which is why I think we really saw the boom in TikTok and we saw the boom in YouTube, where there are like these microcosms of communities having live streams, engaging, and they have a time to come together every day just to talk, because we were all really looking for that connection, even if it was online, digital. We really wanted that community. So I think moving forward, it's really about who's facilitating those conversations. So it's not 10 ways to lose weight. It's let's talk about body positivity and what was your experience doing that. It's really about the conversation and then the community aspect, I think, moving forward.
An interesting note on community, and this next question is for Britt. I mean, Britt, your Instagram, the Banana Diaries, it's vegan recipes. Did you find that kind of throughout quarantine, you were able to foster a sense of community with the recipe you were creating? Or, I'm curious because food unites people, right? And it brings us together. I'm curious.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely the community not only like grew, but it also got a lot stronger. And it was cool because, a lot of people were just starting baking for the first time. So a lot of my content actually—
Everyone was baking banana bread.
Yes.
You're right.
That was great. So yeah, that was fun. But so it was not only just like shifting the recipes to be like, okay, so people aren't doing large gatherings. Like when you're celebrating birthdays, you don't want like a massive cake. You want like a small little 6-inch cake. So like doing that, but then also providing these new guides and like, making the recipes like extra not intensive, but like just like basically bulking them out with like all the information and tips that you could use so that, the new bakers are successful. And I don't know, it's like something that like I always wanted the blog to be something that was just a little like pocket of joy for people to come to. And I felt like that kind of it helps grow during that time too.
And I want to get back to that notion of growth because I'm curious to hear from each of you how you grew your following. But Omika, I have been following you and your sisters quite literally since the inception of the Jakaria sisters. And when I say meteoric rise, I would check in every day because I was like, oh my God, I have a friend who is going viral. And I was telling everyone, about you and your sisters. So what was that like? I mean, first of all, going viral on TikTok, which is predominantly, utilized by Gen Zers, right? How was that experience for you, but also during COVID?
Yeah, so when my sisters and I moved home for COVID, I didn't really know what TikTok was. I feel like I'm a little bit out of Gen Z, but my youngest sister knew about it and we started making videos. We had all grown up dancing together. So we started just kind of doing it for fun. We were bored during quarantine, taking classes, making videos.
So how did it start? Did she say, like, I'm so curious, like, what was the inception of the Jakaria sisters? Because you all are a force now, right? So like, yeah. I love origin stories. How did it begin? Like, what was the first thing she said?
Literally, she said, hey, like there's this trending video. Let's just make a video for fun. It was totally for fun. And then we started making more as the weeks went on. And then we started adding a bit of our own flavor and twist to it, whether it was cultural or with our own dance styles. And then that's when we saw things go viral. When people said, oh, I see that you're making this trending content, but you're adding your own spin to it. And people really seem to resonate with that. And so very quickly at the beginning of quarantine, our account started to go pretty viral. And then we continued to make our unique content that feels very true to us.
Wow. Well, I'm also curious for you, Omika, because it's the Jakaria sisters, right? It's like you're a music group essentially, but you're also at Tuck right now. So how has that been in terms of content creation? I mean, will you go solo? Is it, do you have a solo career ahead of yourself, or how have you and your sisters navigated that discussion?
Yeah, so at the end of last summer, we made a lot of content, stockpiled a bunch of videos before we went back to school. So we worked very hard because it's something that we cared about and wanted to continue doing. And then over breaks, we come together, we make sure we have our sister time, but we also do prioritize making new content and making sure that we're staying on trend. This summer we'll also be together, and then we're going to be a little bit closer starting in the fall. So hopefully that'll help with continuing to work together. And we do all have our individual hopes and dreams. So I think we will continue to make our own content and build that out. But we do believe in the power of our joint account and everything that we're able to accomplish together too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really cool. Well, we'll come back to you in a bit, but now we're going to go on to Mary. Mary, first of all, I love your wallpaper. That is beautiful. And just this background in general, I'm obsessed with it. But number two, I just want to talk a little bit about audience, so like when you first started your Instagram profile, oh God, I feel like I sound so old. When you first got on Instagram, like how did you go about the question of audience? Like, was that something immediately that came to mind? Did you know who you were catering your content to, or did that grow? And if so, how did it evolve over time?
So it is definitely evolved, but it was pretty clear at the outset, and it's part of why I started the platform. And actually, you feel old. I started an actual web-based blog first before I had an Instagram. Instagram was in existence. I'm not that old. It did exist, but it wasn't as big as it is now, of course. But I was working on Wall Street, and I sort of stumbled upon through a friend a fashion blog. Like, who are these fashion bloggers? Why are they putting pictures of themselves on the internet? And as I learned more about them and about the ways in which fashion blogs were really changing the landscape of fashion and retail marketing, I thought that there was an opportunity to speak to women like me, because I didn't see myself represented in the blogs that were in existence. So someone who approached their career with a lot of seriousness, but that perhaps that was not mutually exclusive with an interest in fashion and style and some of these other things that were perceived to be maybe classically feminine or frivolous. And so I thought that there was an opportunity to combine those things and really just represent sort of someone like me in this space. And so that was the impetus for starting the blog and the Instagram platform. And what's funny is that because at the time everything was so new, and as I said, my own reaction initially was like, oh, who are these idiots? Like, why are they posting selfies? And what is this garbage? I, for the first full year, cropped my face out of every photo.
Really? Wow.
Like the headless horseman.
Why was that? You just didn't want to showcase your face?
I was still working on Wall Street. I was terrified of being perceived to be sort of silly, or like that this was some crazy exercise in narcissism. And so I wanted to sort of create this platform, have a place to build this community. But I had all of those fears, and I was also very afraid of having people at work find out, and what's my like 55-year-old boss gonna think? So things, especially working in a very male-dominated sort of traditional corporate industry. Anyway, so it's kind of funny to think back on that evolution, certainly, and really the sort of shifting point for me was I was still able to build a wonderful audience, and I got my first sort of big campaign with a brand that I loved, and they were like, we'd love to work with you, but this whole headless horseman thing is like not going to work for a national campaign, so you have to show your face. And so I posted a picture, or I did a blog post with this brand in which my face was visible. And I don't think I slept for like 3 weeks. I was so nervous / mortified.
Oh my God.
Now, obviously, it's very, very common. But yeah, that was an interesting.
And so that's then what finally got you to put your face in these photos.
Yeah. That's what
Wow.
did it.
I love that. And I have one final question for you, Mary, before we move on to Candy, who's up next. But I'm curious, how did you migrate your audience? Because like you said, you started with a blog. So I'm just curious, when you introduced Instagram and when that really took off as a platform for bloggers, how did you migrate? Did you migrate at all, or what was that introduction like?
Yeah, I think that there's always, cross promotion that you intentionally do across platforms so that you aren't too dependent just upon your blog or just upon your Instagram. Pinterest has, funny enough, like that just sounds crazy to even talk about, but Pinterest is still a huge platform for me. But yeah, so I would intentionally post things in, driving to the blog from Instagram, driving to Instagram from the blog, so that my audience knew where to find me in sort of wherever, whatever platform they were most heavily using. So I think that was important along the way. But it is funny to think back on Instagram in those early days, and it was just like a random ancillary platform that I would sort of repost blog images to, just to drive people to the blog. And it's really flip-flopped over the years.
Wow. It's really nuts. I mean, I distinctly remember those terrible filters that I always used to throw on my photos that I do not use anymore. Thankfully, we have outgrown that. Candy, your Instagram bio, describes yourself as a self-care muse. And I have to say, I actually have been following you for a while, because at Spotify, we were creating this self-care podcast strategy. And I had identified you as someone that I wanted to go after. I'm now in TV and film, so this is not going to end up anywhere, but I've been following you for a while. And I'm just so curious, what is self-care to you? And how does your self-care brand differentiate itself from others? Because there are so many. So it's like, how do you represent that and stay current and also a leader in the self-care field?
Oh, this is a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. For me, I make it very clear the difference between self-love and self-care. Because I think
what is the difference?
Self-care has become a very buzzword. It's a very, kind of cliche now. Everyone's like, self-care, spa day, face mask. That's great and all, but that's not really what it's about. So self-love is the compassionate and forgiving and graceful relationship that you have with yourself. So you're showing yourself that same level of love and compassion and understanding and gentleness that you freely give to anybody else, rather than being critical on yourself or judging yourself or not feeling worthy or valuable or good enough. You value yourself. So self-love is just cultivating that compassionate relationship to yourself. Self-care is actually the tools and the practices that we implement to cultivate that loving relationship. So it looks like if I'm having a really busy day and I'm frazzled, I'm going to take that time to take a nap, to journal, to meditate, to drink water, to call up my girlfriend to get some support, to go to therapy if that's what it takes, to take a walk in nature, to have those, sure, you can have those spa days and the face mask, but it's really about the intentionality behind it. I'm not getting self-worth because I'm spending all this money on myself and all these things. But I love myself, therefore I'm going to take care of myself. And these are the things that make me feel good. These are the things that pull me back up. So it's really about cultivating that loving relationship to yourself, making your own well-being your first and best priority. And then self-care is just, what are the authentic things that happen? What are the tools and practices that you have in place to cultivate that loving relationship? So to me, they're kind of like the two different things, and they go hand in hand. And then I think how I sort of am different is, I'm Sugar Pills, a practical guide to self-care. So what I put out, it is very snackable. It's very implement. And it's very just like straight talk. It's like, I'm talking to my good girlfriend. I'm talking to my best friend. I'm like, oh, he did what? Well, these are 3 ways to handle that situation.
And do you feel, and does your audience also talk to you that way? Like, because it sounds then that you have that like great witty banter, so you feel like you can connect with them then through that way.
Absolutely. I actually had someone who follows me on Instagram. She DM'd me and she's like, I almost called you. And I was like, well, boundaries, you can't call me, but you can DM me and we can talk about it over DM.
God, the Instagram DMs.
But I just talked her through her day, over DM. She was going through something with like, finding a job or whatever it was. And we had and then again, going back to what I said earlier, through cultivating conversation and cultivating community, she felt safe enough to reach out to a social media influencer. I've never met her in my life. We're not actual friends in real life. But she felt, but through the content I would put out and through the way in which I would receive comments and have that dialogue and conversation, she felt safe enough to say, hey, I'm having a really tough day. I know you talk about this stuff. Is it okay to talk to you about this? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Let's talk about it. So I think, and back to your question about audience, from the beginning, it was always me talking to one specific person, and that was my best friend. It was just like, what advice would I give to my best friend? How do I talk to her? How do I show up for her? And that's why I showed up for my audience. And I call them my lovelies. I'm like, hey, lovelies. Like, I love lovelies. Yeah, because I want it to be conversational, and I want it to be a safe space to share and to talk without judgment and without fluff in the filler, which is great and fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a spa day, but let's get to the intentionality behind it. Let's get to the root cause. Let's get to cultivating that loving relationship with yourself.
I love that. And, it's so great that you feel comfortable receiving those DMs too from your followers, and that they feel comfortable sending that to you as well, that there is that exchange. But I'm also curious because it seems then that you're on 24/7, right? Like, content, we know, is king. Content never sleeps. And it's always a matter of making sure that you are constantly feeding the beast, because you have a group of ravenous followers, like Omika, 700,000 people go to you and your sisters. Is there any pressure? Like, I imagine, like, I only have like 1,900 followers, like that's it. But to have 700,000 people, Omika, following you, did you ever feel at any point like, okay, this is becoming too much?
Yeah, I think over time we've realized that we have a deeper sense of responsibility. So in the beginning, we started making dance videos and doing things for fun, which is still the core and the crux of our content. But over time, we realized that perhaps we represent a larger group of people, or people that may not have seen people who look like them represented in media before. So we really take to heart that responsibility of representing. And to us, that looks like really combining our Indian and American identities as first generation Americans. Because when we were growing up, we often felt like we had to choose one side or another. And through our content, we're really able to merge both. And we've received so much support from younger people who say, wow, it's so cool to be able to see my full self in your content. So that's always really encouraging when people feel like they see themselves. And we've also tried to use our platform then to promote social issues and raise awareness about other important things beyond just dance. And people seem to take to that pretty well too.
Wow. And I'm curious, because we talked about it earlier. So obviously the COVID of it all, but I think we also have to talk about Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd shooting, and the reckoning that, and I feel like that too is a buzzword as well, but there's obviously been a lot that has happened over the last year. And I'm curious, as content creators, how do you respond to that? Do you respond? I even think about like the Black Square, remember that everyone uploaded last year, and then most recently the Blue Square, or Stop Asian Hate. There are a lot of things that have happened, obviously over the last year and a half. So Britt, I know obviously you have 99,000 followers, and you are very much vegan food. How, if at all, did you respond or react, even maybe not with a post, but maybe even a story? Like, how do you stay true to your beliefs and what you stand for as well outside of blogging?
Yeah, so it definitely, it's it's interesting because I see my Instagram like not very much as sharing myself, like it's really about the recipes. But when it comes to that stuff, I think that it is important to show where you stand on those issues, and to show that, you're going to be, at the forefront to like protect people, and also to, stand up for what's right. It has been tricky, but it also has been rewarding, because I felt like we came together closer as a community. And I don't know, it was nice to see that like just a lot of people agreed with, taking a stance, and that, like, I think that showed the better part of the world, better part of the world coming together. And I think that as long as like you're leading with your heart, like it's tricky because you're going to make mistakes, but as long as you're always coming from a place of compassion and wanting to do better, I think that, a lot of people respect that, and there's only personal growth from there. And yeah, I think it's definitely been a learning curve, but yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's a learning curve. I mean, there's no right answer, right? There's
Yeah.
no right answer for that question. I was just curious, and I know you mentioned that a lot of people kind of had agreed, and they were of the same belief. But I'm curious, Mary, trolls. Lord knows there are quite a few of them on Instagram. I am just blown away constantly by how brazen people are with regard to comments on posts. How do you handle trolls? And do you engage? Do you let your followers, engage on your behalf? I always think about, the Swifties, for example. Like, I distinctly remember Ginny and Georgia, which was the hit show on Netflix this summer, made a remark about Taylor Swift's relationships. And then I went to the Ginny and Georgia Instagram and saw snake emojis and don't mess with the Swifties, but they went at the show. So I'm curious, how do you handle trolls and navigate those waters?
I that's sort of a constant struggle. And a lot of times I really laugh it off, and my audience will sort of laugh at it with me. Especially when it's something silly, like it's someone is like, your eyeliner looks stupid, like just like random, like sort of.
Has someone said that to you? Your eyeliner looks stupid?
Oh, constantly. Like,
oh my God.
Constantly. It will just be like, especially because a lot of my content, certainly over the years, has been fashion focused. It'll be like, just need to let you know that your handbag does not match your shoes. So. And it's just like, that just is sort of funny to me.
Wow.
The tricky thing that I don't have a great answer to, and is something that everyone struggles with, in this space, is how to respond to the people who are really nasty and vitriolic. Obviously, there are blocking functions on various platforms. But in many cases, I see that backfire where
oh, really?
Yeah, where you can block someone, and that sort of fuels their fire, and they're like, you can't silence me. So then they go to a different platform where they create profiles. Wow. So for the most part, I just do not engage. And if they leave a hateful comment, I leave it. I don't, unless it's sort of, if it were racist or hateful in some capacity, like if it's just, sort of a nasty comment to me telling me my hair looks bad or whatever, I leave it all. And yeah, sometimes my followers will come for them, and I'll just be like, sitting back while eating popcorn. But I don't know, it's definitely a struggle. I would say I've dealt with it for long enough that, first of all, I don't deal with a ton of it. I think that there are some influencers who have more than others. I'm very lucky that my community is, by far very positive. But I definitely have the random people, and for the most part, a lot of those people are, in a dark place themselves, or
that's true,
struggle with mental illness, things like that. And so, you have to just take it all with a grain of salt a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really great, right? Just take it with a grain of salt. But I imagine you would need a lot of salt, right? Every now and then, get a big container. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mary. Candy, I am now starting to get questions from our audience. I love this. This is my favorite part about moderating panels, when we really get into the meat and potatoes of things. So this question is for Candy. What is your perspective on any alumni that are thinking of stepping into the blog, Insta, TikTok arena? Do they feel it is saturated? Do you feel it's saturated? Or is this still a career folks can follow?
I think it's definitely still a career that folks can follow. I think anytime something is working, the go-to is it's oversaturated, right? But I think as long as your perspective and the content that you're putting out is meaningful, you will find an audience for it. And you have a unique talent, a unique voice, a unique gift that is only uniquely to you. So there is definitely a space to put it out there. So I would definitely say create a plan, maybe do your research, like how to make money on Instagram, how to make money on TikTok, put together a game plan. How much money do you want to be making per month? And how much money do you want to be making per 6 months? Put together, really look at it as a business. So yes, I'm a content creator, but I'm a professional in the space. So you also want to think about profitability. So you want to think about, how am I going to monetize this content? Have the content, yes, be rooted in purpose and passion, but you also need to make sure that it's going to be profitable as well. And that's how you transition from hobby or amateur into that professional space. So look at it as any other career move or any other professional transition that you're going to make, and put a plan into place. I would also say ask for help. I think that's a big thing. I know, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, and obviously it happens to everyone, but I know particularly as women in a space where it is creative, or you're doing content, or you're an entrepreneur, you kind of feel like you have to have it all figured out on your own before you can do something. Or you feel that you can't ask for help because, people are going to know I don't have it figured out. They're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a big fraud. All this imposter.
Right. Isn't that nuts? That like asking for help?
It's insane.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. But I would say if you are looking to transition, ask for help. Find someone in the space that is doing it and doing it well, and then ask them for guidance. What were the steps that you took? Do you have any insights? What was your blueprint? Find a mentorship in the place. Again, look at it as any professional move that you're going to make. If you want it to transition into being a trader on Wall Street or whatever it is, those are the things you would do. How much is the position going to pay? What are the hours going to look like? Let me get a mentor in the space. Let me network. Let me connect. And then also think about the type of content you want to create, and then how are you going to diversify it? There's so many things you can do. You can do Instagram, and then you can start selling your own products. You can do consulting. You can do speaking engagements. We were just talking about my podcast. You can do podcasts.
Yes.
You can do brand partnerships. You can do affiliate marketing. So there are so many different ways to monetize and diversify your influence and your content that I definitely don't think that it's oversaturated. I just think you need to just have that confidence in yourself that whatever vision you have to create is valuable and worthy. And we all need to have the gift that you want to put out there. We're still making TV shows. We're still making podcasts. We're still writing books. There's a new social media platform that pops up every day. So why not put the gift or the vision or the product or service that you want to put out there? Why not put it out there? Of course, there is space for you. Just look at it as a business and put a blueprint into place and ask for help. Find a mentor, find a mastermind group, ask for help. It's okay. Ask for help.
I love that. Ask for help. And we need to normalize asking for help, because we don't do that enough. It is so unbelievably key in all aspects. I absolutely love that. And I agree wholeheartedly. Omika, the last question brought up a few platforms: blog, Instagram, TikTok. Then we have, of course, Twitter. I mean, also now, one thing I'm most fascinated about is the live space, Clubhouse. Spotify just also invested in the live space. So when it comes to platforms, which platform is king, Omika? I mean, and how did you and your sisters navigate selecting the platform that you would spend more time on?
We've realized that it's really important to diversify all of our platforms. So we started on TikTok, which is where we hit our viral growth in the first place. And we think TikTok is amazing because it's so personalized and the algorithm is amazing with the For You page and all of that. But we quickly realized that we wanted to not only reach more people, but also create other types of content. So we love Instagram. We've also been growing on there. We started a YouTube channel. We're looking at other platforms as well. But we realized that we want to, of course, continue creating TikTok videos, but as we expanded to more long form content, it was important to branch out into YouTube and look into Instagram, especially in terms of creating a community. Even Facebook is great for that. So it just depends on the types of goals that you have, but we've been told over and over again that it's really important to make sure that we're on everything, doing our best. Of course, keep our core very strong, but it's great to be able to reach people wherever they're looking for you. I think that's the key, is that you never know when someone is searching for you, when they're looking for your content. So you really want to make sure that you pop up when they are searching for you.
I'm curious. You said something. You said we've been told. Who do you have a mentor in the space? Like who is telling you this? I want to know because I need their advice clearly.
Yeah, so we do have a manager, and we've been working with a few people who have a lot of experience in social media and dance and all of that. So we're really grateful that people have been mentoring us.
That's
we definitely
excellent.
wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Wow, that is wonderful. My next question is for Britt, and Britt, this is just because I think that your page is so aesthetically pleasing. The photos are beautiful. Did you have to invest in a camera? Like when you first started, was it with your phone, or kind of like how did you really elevate your page? Because your page is very elevated and the photos are elevated. They're different. So how did you do that, and what did you use?
Yeah, so when I first started the Banana Diaries, it was on my phone. But I was an avid blog reader, and I always knew that like I wanted to start a blog. So I started the blog, and I realized quickly that the way to differentiate myself would be to kind of take my photos and my videos to the next level. So that's when I invested in taking, professional food photography courses, and I also realized that.
Oh, you actually took a course.
Oh yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. So basically, like I knew that if I could also go down the route of food photography, not just like with an iPhone camera, like but with an actual professional camera, like I would also be able to then work with brands in that capacity. So it was a way to diversify income, and also present to brands that, hey, like not only can you grab a spot on my blog and like we can work together on something that will resonate with my audience, but I can also provide you photos that you can use in campaigns and on your social media, and however you would like to use the photo. So yeah, that was kind of how
Oh,
I.
that's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so it's been a journey through that way. But sorry, what was the question?
No, that was my question. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, you answered it, I think, beautifully.
Okay.
So thank you, and really interesting for me that you actually took a photography course. That makes sense that you would do that because you're, yet again investing in yourself, your brand, for something that ultimately will propel you.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
To print too as well then, because there was no difference then, and just there's a slight difference in taking photography for a website versus like print, but it's a
Yeah.
minor difference.
Huh. Very, very interesting. I'm going to go to an audience question, and this next one is for Mary. Mary, how do you set boundaries for yourself? How do you create work-life balance when your personal life is your work? Right?
So, you don't.
You don't really.
To this question, tell me. No, I mean, listen, I think that I have certainly gotten much better at this since having children. I just maybe a few weeks ago, and I also have a 19-month-old. So that has kicked my like workaholic butt into shape in terms of the boundary setting and the trying to create some normalcy in my schedule, just because I not only have to be present for my children, but I very much want to be. So that is important. I think that for me, I have been able to identify ways in which I can connect personally with my audience without sort of showing and sharing everything. So, and that's kind of a case by case basis, depending on the person, but depending on the social media. Britt mentioned that she really doesn't share much personal, content at all. And so there are a lot of people like that. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum who are like sort of on Instagram live fighting with their spouse or something. So, you run the gamut there. For me, I found a lot of ways that I feel comfortable connecting with members of my audience, whether it's about subjects like this and work-life balance and how do you manage your kids and how do you manage your work and things like that. And, how do I dress for work and how do I get sort of food on the table for my family in an efficient way, and all of these things that you can share and relate to other people and relate to the community on a personal level without necessarily feeling like you have to share everything. And so I very much don't feel like I have to share everything. And so I enjoy that kind of sweet spot.
I love that. And I think it's so good that you, what you just said, you don't have to share everything, right? Like today I went for a little stroll this morning, and I was going to take a photo of my bagel, and I was like, wait a minute, Julian, no. And then my phone died. So that was the universe telling me, set boundaries. Instagram does not need to see your bacon, egg, and cheese, though it was a good one. I do, though, want to spend some time talking about monetization, because that's very important. And Candy, this next one's for you, because this is also an audience question. But, you know, how did you go about monetizing? How did you go about sponsorships? And then two, I'm wondering, because you're probably approached by many brands that want to work with you, are you selective with who you work with, or do you just say like, sure, I'll do it? And the question was, how do you convince a brand or company to sponsor you?
Okay, well, first, I wouldn't look at it as convincing someone to sponsor me, because to me, that comes from a place of neediness. Like, please pick me and pay me to post about your brand.
Me.
The first thing I would do is kind of switch your mindset. You're actually adding value, and it's a partnership. So they're giving you something, and you're also giving them something. You know, to Brittany's point,
Interesting.
saying I have great photography. You can use it for your social media campaigns. You can use it for your web page. So we're actually providing value to them, which is why they're paying us for it. So the first thing I would do is switch your mindset. Whether you have 1,000 followers or 1,000,000 followers, the content that you create is valuable. The time that you put into it is valuable as well.
On the notion of value, how do you assign a dollar amount? Like, do you assign a dollar amount, or, you know, like, because that's very interesting. You know, you're right. It is very valuable. What's the value?
Okay, well, I'll give you some secrets. So for me, I never put a number on it first. I always ask them what their budget is for the project, and then I can tailor the campaign to your budget. Because sometimes if I put out a number, maybe I'm lowballing myself. Like maybe they have such a bigger budget, and I'm like, well, these are my rates. And they're like, oh, sure. Well, I could have gotten double, triple that. So I think, again, it's always about the mindset. Come to it as if it is a business, and that you are giving value to someone who's going to give you money for the value that you are giving, right? So I pitch in again, so I wouldn't say convince, but I would say how to go about pitching brand partnerships. So the first thing I would do is create a template where it's like, hi, XX brand, you know, I'm Candy Washington. These are the different things that I cover. You know, here's a link to a really great campaign I just did, or here's like my media kit with some of my great highlights. You know, here's some of my stats. I really love your brand because of X, Y, and Z. And the value that I add could be, I would love to try out this, share my experience, whatever, like, you know, let me know if you want to move forward, and whatever that is, you know, keep it short, keep it sweet, but come from a place of, I am an entrepreneur, small business owner, content creator, whatever you want to call it. But you're a professional in the space, and you're asking for a partnership, not please pick me. Also, remember, in this space now, there is such a power of the micro influencer. So yes, some people have 1,000,000 followers, 2,000,000 followers. That's the macro level, and that's great. But brands now really are looking to those 10K, 50K, 100K, 200K. Because if I'm gonna say, let's say my budget for brand partnership is 30K, right? Do I want to give one influencer 30K and just connect with that audience, or do I want to chop that,
break it apart,
up, and I'm going to give 5K to this influencer, 5K to that influencer, and then now that 130K, I'm reaching so many different audiences.
Wow.
A beauty influencer, a fashion influencer, a tech
Love
person,
that.
you know, with that intersection of whatever the brand is. So there is power in being a micro influencer. And if you don't want to start pitching the brands yourself, or if you're kind of weary on that, there are so many influencer networks. So if you don't know about this, influencer networks are third-party networks where they have the relationships with the brands, and then they have the relationships with the influencers. So brand X would go to the influencer network and say, hey, we're doing a campaign for our new launch of our new spring collection. We're looking for 10 to 15, you know, influencers to use. They'll go to the database and like, oh, Candy has this is her engagement, she's really great for this. And then they send that out to their database of influencers saying, these are what the deliverables are. You need to do like 3 Insta stories or 1 Insta post. You know, this is what the compensation is, or the compensation is open. So you have visibility going into it, what is expected of you and what you can expect from the brand. And then you have that third party facilitating it. So if you feel like, oh, I only have 10K or I'm just starting out, go to those influencer networks, because they're looking for influencers at all levels, not
That's
just
great.
the 10Ks of the world, but they want, you know, at all levels. And so that way you can go and like I've actually seen a lot where it's just like, we're looking for under 10, we're looking for under 20, we're looking for 100K, like, or they'll have different tiers, which I've noticed now, which is great. So it's like, okay, well, if you have the under 25K, this is what we'll pay you. If you have over 50K, this is what we'll pay you. If you have over 100K, so they have different tiers. So, and that also gives transparency as well, right? So I think that's what I would do. Change your mindset. You are adding value to a brand.
I love that.
The value that you're adding. So you're not convincing anybody of anything. You're creating a partnership. So switch your mindset. Go to it as this is a business. Have that professionalism. Start pitching. I don't care if you have 10 followers or 1 million. Start pitching. You never know. And even if they say in kind, they're like, okay, well, you know, we're going to send you a ton of stuff. You know, you don't have enough followers for a budget. Then now you're starting to build up a portfolio, a media kit. You can go to the next brand and be like, oh, I just did this really great campaign with X, Y, and Z brand. Look what all I did. They're buying into me. You should too, right? So now your equity as an influencer is increasing because you have social proof that other brands, even if they didn't, you don't have to tell anybody that they didn't pay you for it. You just say, because you're not lying, I just did this really great social media campaign with this brand. Look at all the beautiful imagery I created. This is the video we did. These are the stats. You know, I think there's a lot of symmetry between your brand and this brand. You know, let's move forward. Now you're getting content for your media kit. Now you have an arsenal tools leverage now. Like, oh wow, you work with that. We need to get that influencer too, right? You
I
work
love
with
that. And also
Coke, right?
And yes, and also what you said about it being a partnership and you are being additive. This is like perfect relationship advice. Like, no, not coming at it from like a pick me, you know, but like you have value too. You are additive as a partner. I love that so much. Thank you, Candy. This next question is for Britt, and this is also an audience question. How do you launch your online passion to the next steps, like taking a passion for cooking and recipe development into print, i.e. your recent cookbook?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of it, well, it's not about an overnight success. I mean, I think that a lot of people like look at you know, influencers and bloggers, and they think that like it all comes, you know, in just a few,
like Emily in Paris with you know a few posts, and you know she made it.
Yeah, but it's really just about like the building blocks, and I think that that's the most important part is like setting up the foundation for it. So like with my blog, like I really wanted to establish, you know, people can trust these recipes. They're going to be, you know, fully tested, and you know, they're approved by both people that eat vegan and also not eat vegan. Because I think that was like my biggest struggle was like, you know, when people would ask if something is vegan and then they would immediately assume that it was disgusting or something, or it tasted like grass. So yeah, it was like establishing that, and then again, like the social proof, like what Candy was talking about, and then I think just, you know, it kind of snowballed. So like as I also worked on my food photography, working with brands, you know, I got into certain publications, and, you know, that I think then is how, you know, publishers start to find you. And then, yeah, that's kind of like eventually how I got to the cookbook, which was like a whole, it's different than, you know, just recipe development and blogging. It is like a full-time job in itself.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I think that a lot of people just, you know, they want the instant success, but it is about like building the blocks and stuff, and also having the discipline too. So a lot of times, like, you're not motivated to work, but you have to kind of. A great book that I read last year was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And that is just like, I love him so much. It has nothing to do with food blog or anything, but he's just really cool. And he is so much about like, you have to have the self-discipline if you want to get to the place that you want to be in your life. And that's with everything. Like, we aren't going to be fully motivated all the time, but when we have the discipline, we can rely on that. And that will carry us to where we want to go.
Wow,
and
I love that.
You know, focusing on the next step too.
And I'm curious, what's the next step for you? Where do you want to go? Like, what is that? You know, I mean, that's a big question, obviously, but what's up next?
So now I'm hiring a team, which is,
oh my God, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool. Like, I get to, it's also nerve-wracking, because then it's like, you know, before, like, I was just supporting myself, and you know, if this failed, then like I could go get another job. But now it's like, oh, like these people depend on me, and you know, I have to support them as well. And but they're also contributing to my growth as well. So it's really cool, and that's eventually kind of how I see the brand evolving. So that's why when I first said, like, I don't like to put myself as the forefront of the brand, because I want this to be a brand for everyone. And so I think
It's sustainable.
yeah, and as I build a team, like, I want them to be able to contribute to it on a big level, and I want them to be able to do something that they're passionate and they love. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys know Fit Foodie Finds, but you know, she started off as just, you know, a blogger, and then she's now built a whole team and they all contribute. And I think that that's really cool and special.
Wow, I love that. First of all, I looked up the book and Fit Foodie Finds. This is great. Congratulations on building a team. That is absolutely phenomenal. You're going to be a great leader. Omika, I don't know how we have only 9 minutes left. I feel like we could be here all day talking, but preferably with cocktails. We will do that though next reunion weekend. But Omika, this is also an audience question. What is one tip you can share with our audience for building their own successful personal brand? Like, I guess, you know, what do you wish you would have known when you started?
I think a couple of people have touched on this, but the most important thing I've realized is to really be true to yourself. People can tell when you're not being authentic or not being fully real. So it's really important to do what you're really passionate about. As Candy mentioned, the unique gifts that you have to share with the world, be fearless and share them, because not only will it help you, but it also might inspire others to do the same, which is always the best part. And I think the best part about being in this space is being able to connect with other people and meet other like-minded folks, be in community. That's absolutely the most rewarding part. I know for me, once the pandemic eases up a little bit, my sisters and I want to, you know, teach classes in person and meet all these people that we've been interacting with online in person. So we're so excited to do that. But I think it all comes from a place of authenticity and vulnerability for sure.
So then in terms of like next steps for you, would you say that's something that you are looking to pursue next, kind of like this in-person? I love that idea, right? Especially, I don't know, like boutique fitness, is there a crossover there? What is that for you in terms of next steps?
Yeah, I think something that we've really been impressed by is how our supporters are from truly all over the world. So we would love to eventually be able to travel and teach workshops and classes to all those people from all over the world who've been recreating our videos. So that would be amazing. Of course, we'll continue our online content creation, but want to supplement that with anything we can do face-to-face with people as well.
Wow. I'm first of all just so inspired by each and every one of you and the brands that you own and the brands that you are directing, because you know, each of you have such unique identities and also perspectives that you're bringing, but also to your audiences. So I'm so sad that we only have 7 minutes left, but I just want to thank you and say I'm like fangirling really hard right now. I love it so much. Mary, this next question is for you, and it's also an audience question. Have you ever made a mistake in content that didn't resonate and rang as inauthentic with your followers? Kind of on Omika's notion of like really being authentic. Is there anything that you did where you're like, oh, I don't know if this was something I should have done? And the follow-up to that is, what insight did you gain from that experience?
Gosh, that's such a good question. And I'm not sure I can think of something. I have been sort of laser focused on that since the beginning. And
what, not making a mistake?
No. I'm sure I've made a million mistakes, but about you know, authenticity is such a
got it.
buzzword. But you know, for me, I've been lucky enough to work with many brands over many years, and I've been sort of uber selective about who I work with, often to the frustration of my team. But I feel as though, you know, your audience gets to know you so well, and there's no sort of paycheck that I'd like to cash today that would be worth sort of cannibalizing the trust that I've built with my audience. And so I've been, you know, just extremely, extremely careful about not only always sort of trying to be myself.
Mhm.
But also being really careful about brand partnerships. And I think that that's something that people who are looking to build a social media presence or build a personal brand don't necessarily understand at the outset. And it's something that everyone really has spoken to on this panel is the constancy of the work when you're doing this. And, you really, there are people, I recently was approached by someone who said, oh, I'd love to be an influencer. It must be so cool to just get free stuff all the time.
Oh, interesting. Oh, how did you respond?
And I was like, I promise it's not as cool as games. But I think that the important thing when you're approaching it is that, and Candy spoke a lot to this, is that you're doing it for the right reasons, and you really have something that you want to share that is unique. You're not just looking at, a food blogger you love or a fashion blogger you love and being like, oh, I'd love to just get free clothes all the time. That seems so cool. I'm going to try to replicate what she's doing. Because even the best actress, the constancy of the job, there is nobody else that can fill in for you. You can't go on vacation and just peace out for 2 weeks. You have to be on all the time. And so you have to be authentically passionate about what you're doing. Otherwise you would never be able to sustain it. Even like Meryl Streep could not fake it for this long. And not just build a brand and garner an audience, but maintain a brand and maintain that audience. You just can't fake that. So you have to really be careful about staying true to yourself.
I love that. You can't fake that. And it's also to maintaining it, which is, as you all know, so important. And thank you, Mary. We have 4 minutes left. So Candy, I know you briefly want to answer this question, but do you want me to repeat the question, or are you ready to go?
Oh, I'm ready to go.
Go.
Yeah, well, I said 2 quick things. First, for the tip on building your successful personal brand, I think it's getting really clear on what your purpose is and what your passion is. So passion is what you do that fills you up. Passion is for you, what brings you joy, what brings you light, what you would wake up doing for free every single day. And then your purpose is what you do in service of others. How is your creativity, time, and talent, energy used in service of other people? So I think really getting that sweet spot for a personal brand is how does your purpose serve your passion? How does your passion serve your purpose? And for me, my personal purpose is adding value to the lives of others through storytelling. So I love writing. I love, being on camera and doing all those great things. But the content that I've created is rooted in the purpose of adding value, of being meaningful. So how does your purpose serve your passion? How does your passion serve your purpose? And I think that is what really makes an authentic personal brand, because you're actually doing what fills you up, but you're also adding value to the audience that you are creating it for. And then to the last question about have you done something and didn't resonate? Okay, full transparency, I did a campaign with Psychic Encounters, and it wasn't that it didn't resonate with my audience. It didn't resonate with me and my family and my sister.
Really?
So you have to have people in your life to keep you authentic and to hold you accountable. She was like, you don't really like that. Like, our religion is not into the psychic encounter stuff. I was like, I know. Like,
that's so funny.
Right? I was like, I know, but the check was really big, and it could be for fun, but on a gut level, on an authentic level, it didn't really resonate with me and my actual values. So that was when I was just like, okay, you need to step back, hold yourself accountable, and that money is not worth your integrity. And so you really want to make sure that you have people in your life, in your corner and on your team to hold you accountable to that standard. So when you kind of get blurry on what your, lines are, there are people around you to be like, Candy, you shouldn't be posting about psychic encounters. That is not true to you.
Yeah, it wasn't true to you. Wow, very interesting.
Have people around you to hold you accountable as well.
And also, going back to what you just said, I love it. But I think that's a great way to end, because unfortunately we have quite literally 60 seconds remaining. But passion and purpose, and it is clear to me that each of you maintain that in such high regards. So it has been such a pleasure chatting with the 4 of you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to, impart some wisdom. This was absolutely lovely. And I'm just going to read your Instagram bios one more time so that everyone can follow you. We have the at @V_Banana Diaries on Instagram, at Jacaria Sisters, at Mary Orton, and at Candy Washington. So happy reunion weekend. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Julian. Hoya Saxa.
Hoya
Thank you so much
Saxa.
for having us.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
Bye.
See ya.